Movement is our first language. The way a person moves across the room is the way a person walks through life. My family, it was all about sports, all about skiing. And from the age of 7, I was diehard skier. Almost killed somebody. I didn't hurt them, but I put them in fear of their life. And next thing I knew, I was charged with a felony. I go to San Francisco and I meet him. He was termed the Bitcoin Messiah, whatever that meant. I didn't know what it meant. So much more than money, you know. It's just, it's like a living organism. I was anti-establishment, so anything against Wall Street is in you, and Bitcoin is like a landscape. I think it's way more exciting than people give it credit for. It was magic. It was wild. It was an embodied experience because you saw how I reacted. It was just a love. It was a real connection of like heart to heart.
Welcome to Share Your Bitcoin Journey, presented by Bitcoin for the Arts. I'm Dion Wilson, founder and executive director of Bitcoin for the Arts, a 501c3 nonprofit supporting artists with Bitcoin grants, education, and sovereign funding tools. Today, we have with us a guest who has been a supporter of Bitcoin for the Arts early on, an Alaskan digital artist, a former X Games and World Cup snowboarder, a Rolfer, and one of the clearest voices I know for what artistic sovereignty actually looks like in practice. Her work has been featured at the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas. She runs her own studio, and a few weeks ago, she represented BFTA on the floor at Bitcoin is for Everyone in Portland, where she also sold her first artwork peer to peer with Bitcoin. She is the kind of supporter every nonprofit hopes for, and she has agreed to sit down for the first time to share her story. Welcome, Beth Fletcher.
Thank you for having me.
Beth,
It's a pleasure.
take us all the way back to the beginning. You grew up in Alaska. What was your childhood like?
Wow. Well, Alaska is the last frontier. And so, as you can imagine, it really does embrace that ethos. There's kind of like a Wild West feel to it. The weather's extreme, and so it's also the land of extremes. The winters are super cold and dark, and the
Mm.
summers, like right now, it's like 20 hours of daylight. So, you know, um, so there's that. There's the geography of Alaska. Um, and then I grew up in a small ski town called Girdwood, where the ski mountain's name is Alyeska.
Oh,
And yeah, so my
okay.
parents, they came up here in the late 60s, early 70s, and my dad worked on the Alaska pipeline. It's the oil pipeline, and
Hmm.
earned his money, bought some land, built our house, and raised a family.
Okay, so growing up near the mountain, I'm assuming is how you got your ski
Mm.
experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my family, it was all about sports, all about skiing. And from the age of 7, I was diehard skier, training, dedicated, super competitive, and focused.
Wow, that's amazing. And it just kind of felt natural for you, like just enjoyed it from the beginning.
It was just an obsession. It was whatever was going on outside, family wise, whatever. I just honed in and focused it on the skiing and the training.
And that propelled you all the way to the X Games and the World Cups. So that's an
Yeah.
exceptional level of expertise and skill you had to put on to get to that level.
Yeah. I mean, it's just undying, unwavering, I think, love for the sport. You were a dancer, right?
I was, and
Yeah.
it would be the exact same thing as you're describing. It's just nice to hear someone say it about another field, and you
Uh-huh.
get the same thing. You have to really hone in, and that craft becomes so important to you that that is the only way for you to take it to such a level that you achieved is you really have to lock in, you focus, and you do it not because of the work that it requires. You do it because you're passionate about it and it's something that you really enjoy doing. And so much so for me that I was actually able to go to Alaska. So I was
Oh,
able to,
really?
yeah, yeah.
You've been here.
I've been there. I've been
All
to
right.
Anchorage. I did the Lion King production in Anchorage. We were there for about 3 months. So I
Wow.
actually had a home in Alaska for about 3 months. It was probably one of the best stops I would say that I've been on tour. It was like you said, because of the extreme nature of Alaska. I mean, it's breathtaking. And I think
Right.
also for me, I was there at the right time of year. I want to say we were there around like in August, September.
Oh,
So the weather was not too hot, not too cold.
right.
So I think that was a good time of year to be there for a visitor.
Right.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
there. I was there for a few good months of the year. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely enjoyed it. So you went all the way to the X Games, you went to the World Cups, and then what happened? What pulled you out of competitive sports?
Well, so let's see. Um, yeah. So, okay, X Games. Well, I want to kind of revisit the X Games piece because it's kind of an important lead
Please.
in. So, I went from downhill ski racing and I was competitive till about 16, and then I switched over to snowboarding, which at that time it was the late 90s, so it wasn't super competitive at that time. So you could easily make the transition into, that field. And mid late 90s, X Games was a massive cultural revolution. It was just like Bitcoin but for sports. And so
Hmm.
it was a group of athletes that wanted to kind of take control of how they were getting paid, the sponsorships, the events themselves, and they really just created a whole new genre of sport, which was the
Mm.
X Games. And then you had like Red Bull and Monster and all that kind of came up together.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I guess that was like the beginning of my Bitcoin journey because it's really just like it was like the warm up.
Mm. So you got pulled in because you were already feeling the gatekeeping and
Right.
the lockout happening within your profession. You could
Right.
see it happening even without even talking about the inflationary environment, just the controlled environment of who gets to participate and who gets to be rewarded at what level.
Right. And yeah, and I think we were the first sports where women got equal prize money as the males.
Mm,
So that really broke away, that women were recognized in
yeah.
that way. Um, and then my older sister, she's a three-time Olympian. She was the first woman named to the US snowboard team, 1998. She went to the Salt Lake Olympics in 2002 and
Okay.
then won a bronze medal in 2006.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Awesome. That's pretty awesome. And what sport does she compete in?
it was snowboarding.
Snowboarding as well.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
nice. And is she older or younger?
She's my older sister.
She's your older sister. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, and
Very
then I have
nice.
a middle one, and she was in had national titles, and yeah, so it was
Yeah.
kind of all three of us at the same, we were all traveling together and doing this
Yeah.
thing that was kind of groundbreaking for the time.
Very nice. Wow, that's a nice story. So tell us a little bit about Rolfing.
Rolfing. Well, I thought the easiest way was just to kind of read you what I wrote a summary, and I
Mm-hmm.
and I find that this is like the easiest way. Do you mind?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
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 Not at all.
Let me kind of move you here, move us. All right. So, Rolfing structural integration is a body of work created by Dr. Ida Rolf during the human potential movement in the 1960s. Rolfing exists within the holistic paradigm. A holistic paradigm is a way of understanding reality that focuses on the relationships and interconnectedness of parts within a larger whole, rather than viewing things as isolated pieces. Rolfing seeks to align the human body in the field of gravity through a 10 series process known as the 10 series. The 10 series systematically works through the body, seeking to achieve specific goals for each session. The end goal is greater order in three-dimensional space, which is physical reality. The dominant layer Rolfers work with is the fascia layer. Fascia is one continuous organ that connects everything in the body. Fascia is also the layer that corresponds and gives our body form in the field of gravity. One profound element of Rolfing is that within the 10 series framework, there is a philosophical framework that provides a template for self actualization. And it's the where am I, who am I, and where am I going? Dr. Rolf and others believed a person's structure and how they were organized in gravity was in part a direct reflection of one's consciousness. She would refer to misalignment as random bodies, meaning there was some degree of unconsciousness. Dr. Rolf believed that when man was organized in gravity, evolutionary energies would flow through him. Another profound element found within the body of Rolfing is a term called radical individualism or radical individual. Beginning in our earliest stages of life, our bodies start to inherit structural elements of our parents, our culture, and the collective consciousness. As these outside influences take hold of our structure, by no fault of our own, we begin to take on the attitudes, emotions, beliefs, and consciousness of them. The potential side effect is that one is no longer radically himself, but a blend of external influences. In Rolfing, one of the objectives is uncovering these alien attitudes and emotions so that the individual can return home as an embodied being, a new being with personal agency. Movement is our first language. The way a person moves across the room is the way a person walks through life. When you change these patterns within and of the flesh, the effects ripple out into the world in profound ways. It changes how we relate to the world as well as how we are seen. You will notice bodies from the pre industrial age look very different from bodies you see walking around today. As man entered the industrial age, away from life on the farm, man became more a product, a means to an end, a 9 to 5 entity. The boundary between man and machine began to dissolve.
Hmm. Well, there you have it. That's
Yeah,
Rolfing.
right. It's big. It's
It encompasses a lot of um
right,
okay. I see the connection though, Beth. I see the
right,
connection between that, sports, the artistry, Bitcoin. It all aligns. Totally makes sense. It's the idea that everything is just one whole system
right,
and it's being affected by all of these external factors.
right. And how these, I mean, you could say it's the fiat system, but I don't think
Mhm.
it's just one system that does um, disconnect us, remove us from
Mhm.
this idea of holism and compartmentalizes us,
Right.
so we forget who we are in a sense.
No, you're right. It's a few things. It's just that the fiat system has its own branch, it's its own segment within itself. There's all of their own compartments within that system that
Right,
allows us to have breakdowns in other areas of our life. But then outside of how we economize using the fiat system, sure, we are definitely being influenced in many other ways. So it's a great concept.
yeah,
Um, we have to have another episode where we do a deep dive into how do we break down the ideas behind that.
right. And yeah, and so it's like when we do make this transition into Bitcoin, how do we fix those structures that are still fiat? Because we're
Hmm.
seeing a lot of people. We're in Bitcoin now, but people are still functioning in this other fiat system. They're not
Right,
aligned. Um,
right.
ex- well, not you, my friend. You sure are, but
No,
a lot of
no,
others aren't.
no, it's because we have two separate systems. And like you just explained with Rolfing, first you have to recognize what is happening, that they're two separate systems. You have to recognize the external factors that are playing an effect on your body. We have to recognize that the way Bitcoin operates, it's separate from the system we live in.
Right,
And it's very hard to really understand Bitcoin within that system. You have to look at Bitcoin within its own lens as its own separate system outside
right,
of the system we're in. And
right,
then when you make the comparison and you realize that the Bitcoin system is more aligned with human nature, it's
right
more,
on.
right? It's more aligned with
Absolutely.
how we would just, it's more aligned with how a baby without any communication skills, without knowing, who they are, what religion they are, what color they are, just natural human instincts.
Right,
That's what Bitcoin aligns with, and that's what it feels like. That's why it feels so natural to want to be a part of it. But you have to take time to understand it as a separate system. So
right.
I see the connection between Rolfing and how Bitcoin works. So let's also add in another element that you're practicing. So you've described yoga and Rolfing as a part of the of your wholeness philosophy. Now, does that idea connect to how you approach art?
Well, So in my art pieces, a lot of them seek to teach the onlooker how to see. And so there'll be the
Mm,
whole picture and then the parts. And so it challenges the viewer to see the whole picture. And uh one of the most obvious ones of that is the along the watchtower, the Bitcoin revolution one.
mm-hmm,
There's a lot of different ways of looking at it. And so I kind of purposely create that. Like, can you see the whole picture rather than just the parts?
mm. So you have to see the story within the story. You have to be able to take the pieces and put it together. The whole story is there, and it's up to you to be able to understand and put that story together and not just
Right,
see the individual.
right. So it's being able to see the big picture rather than just the
Right.
details. I mean, we see people doing this with the Bitcoin white paper. People
Mm-hmm.
get honed in on these details and they're forgetting this big picture, which is that it's peer to peer. Uh
Mm,
it's a left brain deal. And uh
mm,
Ian McGilchrist, he's a fabulous philosopher, but he extensively talks about this disease of left brain uh kind of that's taken over where people can't see the whole picture. They're just stuck in seeing the parts.
right.
Uh
We get
so
glued.
it's happening in culture.
Yeah, we get glued in on one aspect. We do that. Well, you know what? I think when you talk about how we think as humans and how we come to just understand and perceive information, how we process information, we almost have to sometimes break things down into the individual items so
Right.
that we better understand it. But then sometimes we get lost or we get caught up or distracted in those individual portions and we forget that this is part of a bigger picture
Right.
and we get stuck and we forget to put the whole picture together.
Right.
Yeah, you're right, Beth. So this is part of the problem that we have in getting people to understand Bitcoin because like you just said, there's so much information within the white paper about the structural concept of Bitcoin. But right there at the top, it sums it all up. Peer to
Right.
peer,
That's what it
electronic
is.
cash system. And we forget that peer to peer. That is the
Absolutely.
most important element of Bitcoin, the peer to peer.
Absolutely. And you really brought that to light for me. And it was like, because I hadn't really heard people talking about it. And I'd been at the conferences. I was featured my art there. Nothing, none of the art reflected peer to peer. And then when we connected, I was like, that's what's missing because I knew I was like, this is a miss. There's something wrong. There's something wrong here. And then we met and
Mm.
it was like, boom. And I just took, it's like,
Well, and I think that's part of the journey. This is
yeah,
this is why this is why I felt it's so important for us to do this because everyone's journey is different and everybody has a different way of perceiving and taking in information. So I said there has to be a way to get people to see all the different perspectives and find that one person that you can relate to and understand and say, you know what? That makes sense to me. Like, so, we have all of this noise that's happening also in the space. So, what I've been trying to do in my understanding of Bitcoin was first try to find the right people to listen to so you get the right understanding of what Bitcoin is supposed to be about. Because
Right.
all of the noise in the space, as Jeff Booth put this so clear, as we get closer and closer to recognizing and Bitcoin becoming that emerging technology that we use, the noise is going to get louder. There's going to be more confusion. And it's just hard. It's going to be harder and harder to hone in on what the real value of Bitcoin is. And
Right.
so this is why I feel it's important to have the artists understand Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer. Let us use it. Let us use it in our practices. And I'm so glad you were able to have that experience when you went to Portland and being able to have that peer-to-peer connection, to have someone say, "Hi, Beth, I appreciate you as an artist. I appreciate your work. I want to economize with you peer to peer, and we have a tool that is able to do that. And you can preserve your value, and nobody can take that away from you. It cannot be diluted by outside external forces." This is
Right.
the beautiful thing about Bitcoin, and we have to get more and more people to understand it. We have to. Um, so you first noticed Bitcoin all the way back in 2010. So that was
Right.
around the Silk Road era. You
It
explained to
would.
me you were doing the X Games thing. So how did the Bitcoin come along? What was the first insight? How did it come into your attention?
So, yeah, so I'm Rolfing. I graduated from the Rolf Institute 2007. Obama was being, I think, yeah, Obama was president. So there was that change happening. I was started paying attention to politics, and 2008, 2009, the bailout, the big bank bailout happened. And so from that, Occupy Wall Street emerged. And at the same time, Bitcoin came out, 2009.
Mm,
So I think it was just kind of all on my radar, just kind of paying attention to politics. And I was anti-establishment, so anything against Wall Street
okay, you were all
was
there.
awesome.
All right. So
It yeah,
it wasn't a hard sell for you to appreciate what Bitcoin was trying to be about. All right.
absolutely not. I was like, yep, yep, that's
Okay,
uh
so you found that moment. All right, so then what happened the next 7 years? You finally made that investment in 2017.
so 2017, I'm gonna go kind of into a story here.
Please.
Uh, you might need to help me out a little bit. So 2017, I had moved my Rolfing practice to Madison, Wisconsin, and um, gosh, I don't know how to frame this. I had had a rough patch of 7 years. In 2010, I had a really bad car accident. I got in my car, blacked out, and got on the highway and almost killed somebody. I didn't hurt them, but I put them in fear of their life. And next thing I knew, I was charged with a felony. Um, so I dealt with that in 2010, and it really just crushed me. It really just turned my direction in life. And for the next 7 years, I mean, I was still working. I was still, making living, but it really took a piece of my soul going through the legal system and having a felony. Like it was not who I was. Uh, so it really crushed me. And I started having some addiction problems. And so I was dealing with that. So in 2017, I moved to Madison, Wisconsin. And uh, my middle sister was living there. So I had my practice there, and I had a good friend who actually owned the ski resort in the town that I was raised in, Alaska. He had bought it and he became a good friend of mine. He was kind of like a father figure. My sister dated him, but he had a brother who was really into Bitcoin. He was an early adopter, super eccentric, and I'd heard about him over the years. So in February, my friend John was like, "Hey, I want you to come meet my brother." So he arranged for all of us to meet in San Francisco at a Dead and Company concert. And so I think he was just, he knew I had been struggling, but he also knew I was into Bitcoin, and he wanted me to meet his brother. So,
Hmm.
um, so I figure I know his brother, so I do all my research online, figure out who this cat is, and I'm just like, oh, this is interesting. He totally is eccentric, but it seems really cool. So I go to San Francisco and I meet him. He was termed the Bitcoin Messiah, whatever that meant. I didn't know what it meant, but so we met and we had a really profound experience. And during the time that we met, one thing we discussed was women in Bitcoin. And it was 2017. I think the Bitcoin conferences had just started. And from my perspective, it just looked like a pretty tough place for women to be. They were holding meetings at strip clubs, and I just saw this like outside perspective. So I'm telling Bitcoin Messiah, I'm like, hey, I want to get a job in Bitcoin, but I don't think I can. I don't see any way in. And he was like, well, I don't think that's true. Whatever. So that conversation ends, but we end up having like this crazy, like psychic connection that happens for 2 days. Uh, and then that was it. Then I didn't see him again
Hmm.
until 2019. And if you need me to stop to ask questions, you can.
Okay. I love this story.
Yeah. So couple years go by, I move on. I totally had a crush on this guy. I thought there was something substantial. And it's 2009, and I head to Europe to go on a bike ride with my dad. And it's September, and I'm walking through the airport, and I see the guy on the news, and he's telling this story that he had been hired by the deep state to have this affair with this Russian agent, Maria Butina. And I'm just like totally flabbergasted. I'm like, what is this about? And and then he has to, and then eventually he steps down from his company. And this is within a few days. I mean, he's kind of known as like a jokester, conspiracy theorist guy. But I believed it. He was like, yeah, the deep state hired me to get information from this Maria Butina. And so in my heart, I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. I kind of like this guy, but I had this other boyfriend. And so COVID comes around.
Hmm.
And I got a lot of time on my hands, and I start researching like this Maria Butina person. I'm like, who is this? I'm like, and then I get on this guy's website because he has an infamous website, and he has like a diary of their meeting. And I'm just like, And I start digging and digging into what the hell is going on here. And I realized that he had taken all of my data from, like, I don't know how long, MySpace, texts, all my browser history, everything. And he had created this person, or this duplicate of this Maria Butina person, which I don't even know is real. And um, so to summarize it, basically, it was to help me just, I had no idea who I was, and he kind of became my teacher at that point. Um, he created this other person to show me who I was. So it wasn't a malicious data breach or anything, but um, yeah, so he came through basically on my phone. I saw him on the interface of my phone one night, and my whole consciousness cracked. I was like, it was the beginning of a huge awakening, and I had no idea who I was. I had just, it was just like being reborn.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this
So
guy just basically he just recreated you and showed you that it was possible for you to be alive.
absolutely, because, you know, teachers, they see you. I mean, that's what these great teachers do, like in the Carlos Castaneda series. The teacher knows everything about the student, and they take that information and they take you on the journey, which is, could be like a hero's journey. And
So would you
so,
say
yeah, and so in retrospect, the meeting in 2017 was just a setup, you know. He knew he knew I had no idea who I was, and
that's interesting? So you would say that you're grateful for this man?
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah.
That's a nice story, Beth.
And
So,
it's so long and broad, and there's so many details, but for here I'll just, that really sent me on a whole vision quest.
mm,
Because it really was a vision quest, because upon my awakening, I felt this intense energy and surge pull at me, that to go somewhere, and that's taken me right here.
mm,
And every second of every day the past 6 years has really led me to this place,
mm.
for whatever reason.
So when you first started making digital art, what did the first piece look like?
The first piece was, I mean, the first like cohesive piece, it was called The American Dream. And it was just about the collapsing of the American dream.
Mm.
A lot of my work is political. Like, for me, there's no separation between Bitcoin and politics. I don't adhere to that ethos. I mean, I understand people do for whatever their reasons is, but not me.
Well, I guess it would be kind of hard when you consider how our monetary system works. I mean, essentially, the money is controlled by an authority outside of our control,
Right.
and that would almost certainly put it into the political realm.
Absolutely. Well, and it's like, if you're a Bitcoiner and you kind of dismiss politics, well then you kind of dismiss yourself as an American citizen. And I think that's dangerous. You know, you're not just a Bitcoiner in America. Like, you're not just a Bitcoiner, you're still a citizen, and we still need to be active
And I would go so
and
far as even as to say, if you're a human being that wakes up every day and you feel that you have to economize in some way in order to survive, and the system you're economizing in rewards you in US dollars or another government issue currency, then this is a battle that you want to be a part of as well, regardless
right,
of whether you're a citizen or not.
right,
Right. Yeah.
right.
So in making your digital art, you're using your MacBook Pro pixel by pixel. Why that medium?
Well, it just happened that way. It was like my medium. My main, I mean, I'm not a fine artist. I know where I am on the spectrum of art. And my purpose is to communicate. I don't care what medium it is. I need to communicate what I'm seeing. And so digital art was the way that that happened for me. And I could create 3D, I could explore, I could create art that I'd never seen before. I could create my own genre, my own style, and that's what I did
Mm.
because that's
A,
what I wanted to do.
mhm. A lot of your work along the Watchtower, the Patriot, Lady Nakamoto, they all have Bitcoin and Alaska running through it at the same time. How do those two things speak to each other in your work? Is there a connection for you between Alaska and Bitcoin?
Well, I mean, I think they're both in me. I think the geography is just the landscape is in you, and Bitcoin is like a landscape.
Mm.
It's not, I mean, for me, it's just so much more than money, you know? It's just, it's like a living organism. And then also, like, I mean, the elements of freedom and wide open space.
It's way more than money.
It's way more than money.
Money is just the medium that we use to exchange, but the value system in Bitcoin is what is the attraction. Yeah.
No, well, yeah, and the reality is it's flexible interpretation. So uh y- it really depends on how the user is using it, is how they define it. And
Mm,
that's what makes it a little tricky for people, but it's also the novelty of it. Like I used Bitcoin for the last 6 years for like the beaching, like the I Ching, you know, you throw the coins, you ask a question and you get an answer. So you
mm,
consult the I Ching. I consult the beaching and I use
mm,
it through numbers.
mm,
That's been my main relationship to it. I
mm,
mean, I invest, but at this point, like I I like novelty. I think we need magic, we need novelty, we need mystery, myth. That's much bigger, you know, and then on top of it, we need sound money.
mm.
But
So
yeah, I think it's way more exciting than we people give it credit for.
I don't think we've even uncovered
Uh-uh.
the scope and magnitude of Bitcoin. We are all focusing on, the money portion, like you say, but there is a key to Bitcoin that just unlocks so many different pathways in society and things that we can do. And for me, it's really about just changing our perception of how we perceive value and the things that we hold as valuable items.
Right.
You know, Bitcoin realigns our evaluation system. And that is the thing that I want to try and drive and get people to really understand about Bitcoin.
Right.
You said art is ideas. Tell us what you mean.
Well, I mean, one, that's not true. That's like one thing art is. I can't say what art is. That would be
Right?
silly. But for me, art is a form of communication. We have these thoughts, these feelings that words often don't do justice. And so art is how we get it out there, how we're being seen, you know? It's like this is in me. I need it to be seen, and this is how it's going to be done. So it's a material form of communication. And then like the new art for me is, I don't just think it's going to be physical. I think it's going to be people creating their own reality.
Mm,
And AI is going to be on board with that. And the creative process is going to look so different. I mean, we have valued these material art pieces like the Mona Lisa, you know, like they're great, beautiful pieces of art, but why the attachment? You know, why the monetary attachment? Why this higher echelon of the art world? Like, what is that about? What's that attachment about? Do we need it? Why? Who does it
mm,
serve? Why do
mm,
people make art?
mm. All good questions, Beth. All good questions. Viewers, answer. Leave it in the comments. I would love to hear your perspective on this. A few weeks ago, Beth, you represented BFTA on the floor at Bitcoin is for Everyone in Portland. What was that weekend like?
Oh, okay. Oh, Bitcoin. Well, it was great. It was pretty low key. I felt really welcomed. Eric Blackstone, I believe. I mean, just a super great guy. I mean, in my conference experiences, this was ideal. Super welcoming. Um, yeah, I was happy to be there.
And you sold your first artwork peer to peer.
I did.
And
Yeah,
what it,
it was so weird, and it was so instinctual. I mean, you can there was a video of it. I mean, it was like it was magic. It was wild. It was an embodied experience because you saw how I reacted. It was like it was just a love. It was a real connection of like heart to heart.
yeah, yeah. You were one of the very first people to sign up to support Bitcoin for the Arts. You've been a donor ever since. What made you do that?
Um, well, because I saw what you were doing and I saw that that was what I believe is in line with what Satoshi envisioned. And I hadn't really come across that. And there's probably people out there doing it. I maybe just don't know them. but I saw what you were doing and I was like, this is it. I want to be a part of this. Um, yeah, and you just had a real honest uh you're just coming from a real honest place with it, and I can appreciate that.
What would you say to a young artist, maybe an Alaskan kid, on the way doing things that you once did? How would you tell them to discover Bitcoin? What would you tell them about Bitcoin?
Well, I mean, one aspect I think of is in Alaska. I mean, there's a, this is native Alaskan land. It was an indigenous, inhabited by the indigenous people who are still fighting for tribal sovereignty. We're not the only people, we're not the only ones. These guys have been in the game for a long time. And being in Alaska, it's here. I see it. I have native friends. So tribal sovereignty, you know,
Mm.
super meaningful to those guys. And I guess what I would suggest for them is like, hey, what about Bitcoin to totally get you guys sovereign off the dollar? Like, that would be fabulous. I'd love to see that for these people that have been, you know, displaced and whatnot, culturally and geographically.
Now, I'm sure they have a huge arts portion to their cultural community. If
Absolutely.
if there's some way that Bitcoin for the Arts can engage with them, these are communities that we want to help understand and give them resources to understand Bitcoin and use Bitcoin. Because, like you said, these are the people who would really benefit from Bitcoin. But at the
Right.
very same time, they're probably the group that has the least amount of access.
Right.
So, this is what we want to do, Beth. And this is
Right.
why we need people like you throughout the world to help us engage with these communities and help build the culture on the Bitcoin standard.
Right.
Where can people find you and what are you working on next?
Well, I have my market or my kind of art page at ladynakamoto.com. So you'll see all of my art there. Um, and then it is for sale. You just have to contact me. And then I have my other website, which is radicalindividual.com. And that's kind of my red book. Like Carl Jung had a red book during his awakening. Well, during my awakening process, I created Radical Individual, and it's my whole journey is on there. Uh, it's totally weird, but it's there. So you can kind of get a sneak peek into what my brain was doing.
Very nice. Beth, last question. We ask all our guests if a $500 to $2,000 Bitcoin micro grant from Bitcoin for the Arts landed in your wallet tomorrow, what would it unlock for you as a creator?
Well, I mean, both you and I know we do a lot of work with this. We put in a lot of time and no money, not a lot of money. I mean, I'd love to say I'd just give it back to you because I appreciate you so much. But yeah, I would probably buy time with it. I'd be like, oh, I'll take that day off and I'll just create.
I love that. Buy time with it. because you cannot buy time with the current system that we go to work for every day.
Right.
Isn't that I one of the things that I've been able to benefit from in doing these podcasts is learning the different terminology that artists are using in Bitcoin expressions. And
Uh-huh.
that's a great one. You can literally use Bitcoin to buy time. I mean,
Yeah.
essentially, really, that's what Bitcoin is. It's preserving time. And if you want to buy time, you buy enough Bitcoin, you can actually buy some time and take a day off, like Beth just suggested.
Yeah,
That is a
absolutely.
wonderful idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and then just keep, I'm continuing to work on the peer-to-peer ethos and developing just more ideas around that. And so, yeah, if I had more money, I would probably quit a lot of my job and work on that down the road eventually.
It's coming. It's coming. Low time preference. That's what we call
Yes, I know that
it.
about you. I'm high time preference, man. I'm totally. I admire you.
Oh, Bitcoin helped me. Bitcoin helped me. It's going to help you too. It will help
Yeah,
everybody. You've been in the system long enough, your low time preference, will start to come to light if you just stick with Bitcoin. Stick with Bitcoin and it'll stick with you.
absolutely.
Thank you for joining us today, Beth.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you all out there. It's another episode of Share Your Bitcoin Journey presented by Bitcoin for the Arts. Please do visit our website, bitcoinforthearts.org. We do need your support. Until the next time, see you.